Picture in your mind a flagship camera. Huge megapixels, impressive autofocus, but no surprise, a big price tag to accompany all that technology. Now imagine how pleased you'd feel if you could get all the best bits of that camera inside a smaller and importantly more affordable body. Well, that's basically the new Sony a7CR, one of two new full-frame cameras that build on the success of the original a7C, but the R is the version of the camera that sports the same 61 megapixel sensor found in that flagship a7R5. So, is this camera too good to be true? Let's find out. Okay, let's make this clear from the start. Sony has sent me this camera to review, but haven't paid me in any way, so all opinions are my own. Now, with that being said, let's take a look at what we'll be talking about in this review, because along with taking a deep dive into the image quality from that huge resolution sensor, we'll also talk on autofocus performance, and we'll look at video quality too. First up though, we need to talk about the design of this camera. Sony cameras are better known for a more functional design style, leaving more aesthetic design to the likes of, say, Fuji or OM System. But there's no getting away from the fact that the a7C series strays from the script, and the R with that gunmetal grey top plate actually looks pretty cool. I mean, for Sony, that's really pushing the boat out, and I like it. Elements like the milled dials gives this camera a premium design feel, so fair play Sony, good job. The actual dimensions of the a7CR are pretty remarkable when you consider Sony has squeezed in that 61 megapixel full frame sensor, because the camera tips the scales at just 515 grams, and with a relocated EVF is only marginally bigger than a tiny micro four thirds camera such as the OM5. Interestingly, there's only a 6-gram difference between the a7CR and the original a7C it replaces, despite the fact that it more than doubles the resolution. And when compared to the a7R5, the slimmed down camera is around 29% lighter and has approximately 53% less volume than the larger a7R5. So where are the weight savings coming from? Well, first up, as I mentioned, is that smaller electronic viewfinder in the left corner of the camera rather than top and center, which is around half the resolution of the a7R5's EVF. But that said, I find it far nicer to use than the EVF on Sony's crop sensor a6-700. So smaller, but completely usable out in the field. Another compromise of the smaller size is the lack of a second storage card slot. It's one of those features that, if that sort of thing bothers you, then it's really going to bother you, because you can't make an instant backup of images, or you can't record stills to one card and video to the other to keep your files separate. In reality though, it doesn't bother me too much. Sony has also done well to squeeze in a fair amount of dials on this tiny camera, with no less than 3 control dials, although one important feature that appears on the a7R5 but is missing from the rear of the a7CR is the joystick, which is mega useful for changing your focus point. The grip is big and offers a decent hold, with the large capacity battery filling nearly all of this inner space. If you are interested in buying this camera, it's likely because you want to take advantage of that huge sensor. And after shooting in all sorts of conditions, I agree that this camera's image quality is something special. Compared to the original a7C, the a7CR has 150% more pixels. That's just crazy. The older model has a max file size of 6000 by 4000 pixel, but the a7RC ramps this up to 9504 by 6336 pixels. Fair enough, those are just numbers. So what does this actually mean? Well, along with plenty of detail and clarity in the frames, it also means photographers can crop intensively without compromising image quality. In essence, it affords photographers a second chance at composing the scene, and while purists may be a little poor-faced about that, it comes in damn useful in the field. Part of the image quality story comes from the fact that the sensor is back illuminated to reduce noise, but also the inclusion of the same processor engine that's found in the much larger and more expensive a7R5, and this results in quick processing of all that resolution and an impressive dynamic range that comes into its own when you shoot in the RAW file format. Let's take a look at some before and after RAW conversions to see what's possible. So we're going to touch on video, but actually if you do shoot more movies than stills, then the more affordable a7C II may be a more cost-savvy choice, and I'll be covering this camera in a later video. What I will say though is the a7CR is highly competent, capable of shooting 4K video up to 60p with 6.2K oversampling. It also features Sony's popular S-Cinetone profile, which works really well for skin tones when shooting scenes that include people. There's also real-time tracking AF with subject recognition and focus briefing compensation. Audio is taken care of by ports for both headphones and an external mic setup, and here's a sequence of example video that I shot to give you a better idea of how the footage looks. We have to touch on the focusing capability of the a7CR and the fact that it includes Sony's AI processing, which helps real-time AF and recognising subjects. It works really well, and regardless if you're shooting a human or a dog, it does a great job of locking onto the eye. The 693 face detection points cover around 79% of the image area and work well even in low light. With all that data being processed, this does impact speed however. The original a7C could shoot 10 frames per second, but this is down to 8 frames per second with active focusing on the a7CR. Amazingly though, the buffer will enable you to shoot over 1,000 JPEGs in one blast. Other features include an impressive IBIS system which offers up to 7 stops of compensation and a weather seal design to provide protection against the elements. There are a few things on the camera that do irk me however. I'm still not totally sold on the menu system and the way it's laid out, and I'm not a huge fan of the position of the on-off switch. I think it's easy to forget that you've left it in the on position. But what do I really think about the a7CR? Well, at the time of recording, the body-only price is $3,000 or £3,200. If you take into account the a7R5 is £4,000 or around $3,900 depending on territories and promotional deals and all of that, the tiny a7CR is both an expensive camera and yet brilliant value at the same time. During my time using the camera, I was impressed both with the smaller EVF, the speed of operation, and how light this package is in the hands. But none of these factors come close to the moment you download stills and review them on the computer. Those extra megapixels make a big difference and could actually change your complete workflow and act as a safety net should you want to change the composition. The a7CR can't match the a7R5 in every department, but that's okay. You know what you're getting for the more affordable model, and arguably all the best bits of the more expensive camera are present anyway. If I was spending my own money and stills were my main priority, because let's not forget the a7R5 can shoot 8K video, I'd choose the a7CR over the a7R5. I just prefer the smaller dimensions and the overall feel of the smaller camera. Plus, the savings would go some way to buying an extra lens. But which camera would you buy? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time. Let's go.